Okay, so now it's time to go ahead and come in here and add in some shelf supports. I need to know how much space we have between. So I'm going to go not to constrain, but to inspect. Distance. I'm going to click on the edges here, and looks like the space between is 7 inches. So if I go to new part, I can start a new sketch. I'll make it on this plane here. Right click, 2-point rectangle. I'll just click a couple times, dimension, click, click. This is 7 inches long. And it doesn't have to be super wide, so let's make it just an inch tall. Okay, hit E for extrude on your keyboard, and we will make this 1/4 of an inch thick, which is actually thicker than it needs to be. Let's do 0.125. Change the material type from generic to cherry, and let's save that 2015 jewelry box so it's still looking in the project file, and we'll call this shelf support. We'll go back over to our assembly view here, say assemble, place, not from content center, just regular place. And there's our shelf support. We'll put 2 of these in, 1 for each side. Right click and say OK. Constrain. We're going to mate this face to this wall here. Apply. Okay, I'm going to move it out just a little bit and say constrain. I want the bottom of this, and I'll just grab the top of this for now. I don't want it actually touching though, so I'm going to say an offset of, let's do 1 inch and see what that looks like. I think that'll be okay, so a 1 inch offset. And if we want, we can always go back and change it later. Let's apply that. And the last one, I need to make another mate constraint with the edge of this. And again, you should be using shift in your middle mouse wheel, but my screen doesn't let me do that, so I'm using this. I'm mating it to this surface here. Okay. Next one, I want that surface to be touching this surface, so I'm mating those two together. I'm going to mate this face and this face. And now instead of doing an offset here, which I certainly could do, I'm going to use a flush constraint and grab the top of this and say that shares the same plane, or it has the same level as this other side here. Okay, so if we look at it like so, I'm saying these two sides have to match up. Apply. Okay, now I can go constrain. I want to have this face touching here. I want this face touching here. And I don't really care about having a vertical constraint because I want to be able to slide this in. But I also want it to stop and not just pull all the way through the box. That's kind of silly. So I'm going to say this piece, right click, make that a contact set. This piece, make a contact set. And this piece, and the one on the other side. There. Now when we go up to the Analyze tab, Inspect, my mistake, you can activate the contact solver. So when you click and drag a part like this, and it comes into contact with something else, it stops. And now that it's stopping there, we can check and see how our height is. Okay, and it's not going to interfere with shutting the lid. That's what I was worried about. It's going to come down to be level with it, and the 1-inch offset was perfect. Okay, if you're actually making this box, you might do a little less than a 1-inch offset, just to make sure that if you have any variance in the height of this, the lid would still shut and you wouldn't have to sand everything down. Okay, last thing we need to do is to make a divider, or a few dividers for inside of here. So let's go ahead and measure the distance between these two edges, and it looks like that's 6.5 inches. And also from top to, not the actual bottom, but just to this surface, is 1.25. So 6.5 and 1.25. Let's make a new part. 2D sketch. We'll pick a surface, right click, 2-point rectangle, dimension, 6.5, 1.25. Zoom out a little bit so we can see it, and we will finish the sketch. E for extrude, and we'll make this a thickness of 0.25. Might be a little chunky. We'll go back to 0.125 again. Okay, and we will make this cherry, so we'll match the other parts of the box. Let's save this, and we'll call this shelf divider. Go back into our assembly file, and here we will go into our assembly tab and place our shelf divider. Let's drop in at least 3. I'll give you some ideas of things you can do with this. Okay, first thing, I know I want this to be touching here. I know I want this face to be touching this wall. I want to temporarily ground this so it can't move on me. So grounded is here. That just makes it to where it doesn't move left, right, up, down. I can just drag things in place. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing with this one next to it. I want to say I want to mate that surface to this surface. And I want to mate this surface to this one. I need my screen to update. There we go. Now, let's say I want to take my third divider, and instead of doing what I was doing with the other ones, I'm still going to pick this top surface, I'm still going to pick this bottom surface and apply that. But now maybe I want to take this and mate it to this side. Maybe I want to take this and mate it to the inside of this shelf. Okay. Now you can get an idea of different things you could do. If you're designing this for different types of jewelry, you could have, like I said, a bunch of these little skinny ones for necklaces. You could have more dividers in here if you want to make a second shelf divider for earrings, rings. I don't know. I made one of these for my wife. She uses it all the time. I made a whole bunch of earring compartments because that's a lot of what she has, and I made these all a little bit shorter so it's easier to grab. But that's all up to you. It's in your design. And we don't really care about how far these are placed. Just make it look kind of nice. because you're dimensioning the individual parts, not the spacing on this. Okay, I think the only thing we have left to do is to unground this, slide that back in place, shut the lid of our box, and here our lid got a little funky. Looks like the wrong corner's mated. Where is it? It might be easier to find it here. I'm going to click on this 12-inch piece, and there it's highlighted. It has a mate constraint there on that edge. Let's delete that momentarily, and instead get this inside corner to mate there. There we go. Let's do that trick about contact sets again. Right click, make that a contact set. Right click, and I should also note I'm left clicking, then right clicking, then going down to contact set. If I click here and then right click here, this is still blue. This is still what's highlighted. And is our contact solver still activated? It is. So now when I go to shut the lid, it shuts all the way. And there you have it. Next video is for drawings.